Amateur restorers of this building believed that they had these interesting headstones, and they are. And I think they were probably buried in the ground, as evidenced by the very rough look of the bottom portion. In other words, it wouldn't be seen. So they thought, well, we'll just stick them in here as filler, and at least they'll be seen. Cement or not, these at least might have been very pretty buildings when they were first built. But is this fort-like? Were these structures for the purpose of the fort? And here are the remains of a very intimate little building. Well, that's pretty much proof positive. Rebar. But who built it and who destroyed it? Because you'd think that it had to have been destroyed. Maybe not. Are these just Disneyland-like structures of their time? Is this what'll happen to Disneyland? We're walking around the altar side end of what looks like a church, not having seen this interior, to a smaller side chapel and the main altar. As you can see, when it was done, there was probably, well, there was no interest in putting anything in English, and certainly no interest in repairing that issue, that missing help. Here we're standing in the narthex looking into and down the nave to the altar of this basilica. A smaller church beside. I think we can deduce from the sign that this was built during the 12th, or at least used during the 12th to the 14th century. And here we're looking down into some structure. And it could be that, just like today, the cheapest way to build something pretty was cement, and that's what they did. Probably the road I was walking, the pathway I was walking when I went up into the complex. And here we're down at what I think is the northeast corner of the fort. And what you'll see now is the foundations for whatever this building was in the forefront, and then the church in the background of the picture overlooking that point. And it's interesting, it was not a defensive tower. And yet the walls, of course, are quite thick. So it was certainly defensive at one time. And all around us is more of what we've seen, so it doesn't really suggest anything interesting to look at. It does appear that across the way on that other bluff was more fortification. Now it could be that I'm wrong about this stone, that in fact it's a sandstone, because you can see it's been drilled. So all of this may be worked, or some of it may be worked sandstone. Here another large bell. As is often the case, the reconstruction of the exterior that's recent, and the incredible proliferation of high beam lights suggests that, rather than education, the purpose of this is to aggrandize the city, to make the views look spectacular, particularly at night. The lack of English signage, or even up-to-date or extensive signage, suggests that anyone learning anything is not an issue. More of the same, telling us what we already know, and that is that such a fortress would have been completely covered with building structures and walkways. And yet there are occasional hints that it might have actually been beautiful, but whether these things are where they originally were, whether they represent part of those structures or just tossed in like those headstones, is something to add interest where otherwise they knew it was going to be boring. All of this is new. Fortunately, of course, the church, wishing to pay for its investment, manages to get the price of entrance into this church in English. I wonder why. Here's a siege machine, a catapult, for tossing rocks at the walls and into the walls, interior of a fort during a siege usually. You wonder if that little cup defines the size of the stone. In other words, maybe the stone can't be more than 3 times the diameter of that cup. If so, you imagine what size machines were used to throw the very large round stones I saw at Kruja in Albania. Construction going on in this whole area here. Here's a metal stripping that's presumably welded together and then tarred at the joints. I suppose that's insulation. Then tarred as it goes over these pipes. But then instead of using all plastic, in fact I don't think there is any plastic, that gray is metal, it's all welded pipe, which ultimately has to rust out.